I get it standing in the music store aisle, eyeing a beautiful acoustic, and wondering if you're about to make a smart investment or just a flashy impulse. You've probably heard the name Martin 1,000 times, and you know the reputation, but that still leaves the question, does this specific standard series 0018 really belong in your case? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks playing the 0018 around my apartment, in my friend's tiny coffee shop setup, and even on a couple of low-key studio sessions. So let me walk you through what that actually feels like. First off, the body shape. The 0018 is a mid-size concert body, not the full-size dreadnought you see on stage. In practice, that means it's a lot easier to hold comfortably when you're sitting on a couch or a small stool, and the lower bout doesn't knock over a lamp in a cramped room. When I was strumming a simple folk pattern for a video call, the guitar sat snugly against my thigh and didn't feel like a workout. That same size, however, does limit how loudly it can project in a big, reverberant space. I tried it in a small bar with a modest PA, and while the tone cut through nicely, it didn't fill the room the way a larger dreadnought would. So if you plan to play mostly at home, in coffee shops, or in intimate venues, the 0018 size is a genuine advantage. If you need a crowd-pleasing, stadium-ready beast, you'll want something bigger. The top wood is Sitka spruce, the classic choice for a bright, articulate voice. In my hands, that translates to a crisp attack on fingerpicks and a clean snap when you hit the low E. The spruce really shines on open chords and folk fingerstyle. Think of a gentle Travis picking pattern that rings out without any muddiness. On a recording session last week, the natural overtones from the spruce gave my vocal tracks a subtle lift, almost as if the mic were picking up a tiny room ambience. On the flip side, spruce can be a bit unforgiving when you're still learning to control dynamics. If you hammer too hard on a chord, the note can sound a little harsh, especially on the higher frets. Mahogany backs and sides bring a warm, rounded low end. I noticed that when I moved from a standard steel string acoustic to this Martin, the bass response felt more rounded rather than boomy. In a practical sense, that makes the guitar sit nicely in a mix with a bass guitar or a synth pad. You get depth without overwhelming the other instruments. The downside is that the Mahogany doesn't have the same projection punch as rosewood, so in a louder acoustic jam session, you might find yourself having to nudge the mic a bit closer to capture the full body. The neck is a hardwood construction, which feels solid and gives the instrument a reassuring heft. For players with smaller hands, the 0018 neck radius is comfortable enough to reach the higher frets without stretching too far. I've used it for a quick blues solo up to the 12th fret and didn't feel cramped. That same solidity, however, can be a trade-off for beginners who are still developing callus strength. The neck isn't soft in the way a budget laminate neck might be, so the strings can feel a bit stiff at first. Give it a few weeks of regular practice, and the feel smooths out, but don't expect an instant slap-the-tit-souriadirity sensation. The ebony fretboard is another detail that's easy to overlook until you actually play. Ebony gives a slick surface that lets your fingers glide, which is a real time saver when you're doing fast chord changes or intricate picking patterns. I found that my fingertips stayed cleaner longer compared to a rosewood board, which tends to collect a bit of oil and can feel a little sticky after a long session. The only practical hiccup is that ebony can be slightly more prone to showing wear over years of heavy use, especially if you're a hard picker. It's not a deal breaker, but if you're planning to treat the guitar like a daily workhorse for 10 years, you might want to keep a polishing cloth handy. So, who should actually consider buying this standard series 0018? If you're an intermediate player who wants a reliable, hand-built instrument that sounds great in a singer-songwriter context, this is a solid match. It's also a good fit for someone who records at home and values that clear, balanced tone that doesn't need a lot of post-processing. For teachers who need an instrument that sits comfortably on a student's lap and won't intimidate them with a massive body, the size and playability are on point. On the other hand, if you're a beginner on a tight budget, there are less expensive entry-level acoustics that get you started without the $600+ price tag. And if you're a touring folk rocker who needs a guitar that can dominate a large stage without a mic, you might look at a dreadnought.